FM3 Classical Radio for opera and concerts.
And this is RTE FM3 Classical Radio. And now, Aspects of Opera, the second in a series of programmes in which Ted Courtney explores a favourite opera. This week, Verdi's La Traviata.
Who was La Traviata? What did she look like? Well, let me take you to a cemetery at Montmartre in Paris, where in a quiet corner sleeps the Lady of the Camellias. I say only sleeps, because every time the overture you are about to hear plays, the Lady of the Camellias, or La Traviata, returns to us, thanks to the genius of Verdi, who was so taken by the play The Lady of the Camellias by Dumas that he asked his friend Piave to turn it into a libretto for him. So, what did La Traviata look like? Well, she was tall, very slender, with black hair and a pink and white complexion, her lips with cherry red, teeth like pearls, a Dresden figurine of exquisite beauty. It was a pure and delicate type of beauty. She was a courtesan, with a joyful heart. Perhaps this is why so many men of her time, so taken by her charm, were besotted by this flower of humanity. Dumas the younger fell in love with her, and what we're about to hear is really their love affair. And of course, the great Liszt, also a great admirer, lover perhaps. So Marie Duplessis, as she was known, did exist. Verdi calls her Violetta Valerie La Traviata. Now, descending scales, her love cry. Now the cellos take up the theme with delicate ornamental endearments in the violins. The curtain rises and we see a lively party of the well-to-do in Paris. Alfredo Germont, long time an admirer of Violetta, is introduced to her. He sings to her beauty and to love in upward leaps of the scale. These joyous leaps are answered by Violetta rising and singing, "I shall divide my gaiety among you all. Everything in life is folly except for pleasure." Now note well a sudden pause just before the singer enters. I call this a Verdian pause. This gives great impetus to the music.
Lippiamo le lieti calici che la bellezza infiora, e là fuggevol la sinestria voluta, liviana i dolci premiti che quello Dio al cuore onnipotente amore per i cari che più tali non sia
In the play The Lady of the Camellias, I suppose you might ask at this point, why camellias? Well, the lady loves camellias, with its delicate fragrance, not overpowering like not any other flower. But in the play itself, by Alexandre Dumas, the hero is Armand Duval. It will be observed that Dumas' hero has the same initials as Dumas himself. So Alfredo is in fact Alexandre Dumas. Here, Alfredo tells Violetta that he has been in love with her for a year and knows that she has been unwell. She answers him saying that she cannot return his love because of her lifestyle. Anyway, everything she has, and it's a lot, is all donated to her by grateful dukes and barons, where money is no object. He's just a poor singer, a good one perhaps, but that's all. Anyway, why can't they just be friends, platonic friends? Is there really such a thing? Well, on one side maybe, but Alfredo was made of better stuff than that. Listen to this gradual, passionate crescendo as he woos her. One day you passed me. He goes, un dì, felice, e terra. This should do the trick.
Un dì, felice, e terra, viva nella segnante, e da quelle dì tremante, delizia al cuore. Solo mi stare, misterioso
Did you hear Verdi blend both voices together in harmony for the first time? So if the voices blend, so do the emotions. You see, not even Violetta can choose where the heart leads. Here she sings unaccompanied in an agitated sort of way. This is something new for her. How strange his words are burnt upon my heart. This is accompanied by a cry from the orchestra, Estrano. Now, the woodwind introduce a more lyrical mood. This time, it's in triple time. At the end of Act 1, Violetta and Alfredo have fallen hopelessly in love, and her will to become well prompts them to leave the gaiety of Paris, and in Act 2 we find them in bliss in her country house outside Paris. But while Violetta is in the city, Alfredo misses her with the words lunge lei, roughly translated, there ain't no sunshine when she's gone. Now listen for tiny traces of Mozart especially in the accompaniment.
Volaron già 3 lune da che la mia Violetta oggi per me lasciò dovizie, amori e le pompose feste, ovali, omaggi, avezza, vede a schiavo ciascun di sua bellezza. Contenta in questi ameni luoghi tutto scorda per me. Qui presso a lei a rinascer mi sento e la sua fio d'amor rigenerato scordo nei gaudi
Annina, Violetta's maid and confidant, now enters with instructions from Violetta to remove all the effects to pay for mounting debts. You see, the coin source from the dukes and barons has begun to dry up, so that Violetta is left in Paris and there's no more money. Alfredo suddenly realizes what Violetta has sacrificed for him, and to make matters worse, she doesn't want him to know. So, determined not to be shamed for the sacrifices of his mistress, he leaves for Paris to get work to pay the debt himself. He tells Annina not to breathe a word of his intentions to Violetta, pausing only to deliver himself of an aria in syncopated 4/4 time, agitata, o mio rimorso.
O mio rimorso infamia, io dissi in tale errore, ma in pur non affrangere il Verdi vero, per pochi sieno acquetati, o grido dell'onore, ma avrai sicuro indice questo non farà vero, o mio rosor, o infamia, così questo o infamia, così quest'onta, sì questo sarà vero, quest'onta sarà vero, sarà vero.
Violetta returns to find an unexpected visitor, Alfredo's father, who begs her to leave his son because the liaison is causing upset to the Germont family and is ruining the marital chances of Alfredo's younger sister. "The happiness of our family depends on your kindness," he says to her. "Right now you'd feel like throttling the old goat, but alas, we can do nothing and can only witness the tragedy." But even he is taken by her tact and gentle charms and is astounded by her dignity and repose. She excuses herself by saying, "Please excuse me if I leave you, more for your sake than mine." He's impressed. But finally she agrees to deny her heart and leave Alfredo for his sister's sake. She decides to write a letter to Alfredo, but he returns while she's doing so. Not knowing his father has spoken to Violetta, he pretends to her that after some persuasion, the father should approve of their courtship. Now, to me, this is the best moment of the opera. Violetta, accompanied by clarinet, most vocal of all instruments, by Alfredo, and the orchestra becomes very agitated with the staccato conversation. Alfredo tells her again that his father will love her too when he sees her. She knows otherwise, but still wants to throw herself at his father's feet, and then he won't want to part them, because you love me, Alfredo, don't you? And the don't you comes out in a chest voice, non è vero, like a cry of pain, almost spoken, a shout, the only time Violetta loses her composure, and this only adds to our pain for the girl. And finally she breaks into her love cry, Amami, Alfredo, the main theme of the overture in sad descending scales. Danni il forza cello.
Silenzio va all'istante ed ora se scriva lui e gli dirò che mi darà il coraggio.
Fai?
Nulla.
Scrivevi?
Sì, no.
Qual turbamento? A chi scrivevi?
A te.
Dammi quel foglio.
No, per ora.
Mi perdona, sono io preoccupato. Giunse mio padre.
Lo vedeste?
Ah no, se ve l'ho scritto mi lasciava. Però l'attendo. Amerai in vederti.
Di cui non mi sorprenda. Lascia che m'allontani. Tu lo calma. Ai piedi suoi mi getterò. Ti disegnerò. Non le vorrò. Sarebbe legge perché tu ami, Alfredo. Tu ami, non è vero. Tu ami, Alfredo. Tu ami, Alfredo, non è vero.
Perché piangi?
Le lagrime avrei d'uomo. Or son tranquilla. Lo vedi, ti sorrido. Lo vedi, son tranquilla. Ti sorrido. Sarò là. Dirò quel fior. Presso a te sempre, sempre, sempre presso a te.
To calm things down, Alfredo's father sings to his son just after he receives the telling note from Violetta and begs him to come home in sweet fatherly tones. The appeal has no effect on Alfredo. He thinks, wrongly, that Violetta has betrayed him. He is stricken with grief at the loss of Violetta. Grief turns to rage. He sees an invitation. He knows where she is now and goes to find her for revenge. The invitation is to a gambling party at Flora's salon. She's a friend of Violetta's. Alfredo gets there before Violetta, who is escorted by Baron Dufault. Alfredo announces that he's extremely lucky at cards because he's so unlucky in love, looking straight at Violetta. The Baron finds his tone very insolent and challenges him to a game for high stakes. Alfredo accepts and wins repeatedly. When the guests have gone to dinner, Violetta calls Alfredo and warns him that he's in danger and must go. "I'll only go if you follow me," he demands. "Unless, of course, you love the Baron more than me." "Yes," she replies and adds, summoning up all her remaining strength, says, "I love him." Blinded by jealousy and fury, he calls to everyone to witness him paying Violetta for her services and her favours, to the great horror of all the guests, and they tell him so in no uncertain terms. A pulsating rhythm introduces a melodic line and develops into a tension until the chords shout their disapproval while being doubled on the strings.
Io cerco, fine, misero, pace terra, ma è tempo ancora perdermi, e da tanta maschia bravo, qui testimone vi chiamo, or testimon vi chiamo, por testimon vi chiamo, che qui pagata io.
The Baron tells Alfredo that he must answer for the insult on the field of honour. That brings us to Act 3. This takes place in Violetta's bedroom. She is now very ill and close to death. You see, consumption is no respecter of character or beauty. Alfredo has had to go abroad after skewering the Baron in a duel. He now knows the sacrifices Violetta has made. He rushes back to beg her forgiveness, and they are reunited in great joy with leaping strings, and Nina announces the arrival of Alfredo, and again traces of Violetta's love cry for Alfredo are heard, till she breaks into a chest voice almost spoken.
Signora, che accade? Quest'oggi è vero che vi sapete meglio? Sì, perché mi sa calma promettete? Sì, di vedervi, rivedervi volli, una gioia improvvisa, una gioia di gesto, sì, o signora,
sono tutto cara.
Io sono Delfine, reso mi sei.
Da questo palpito sciutami in fara, senza desistere più non potrei.
A sangue in vena, l'hai ritrovata, credi che uccidere non puoi dolore.
Scorrere l'affanno, donna adorata, a me perdona il genitor.
Io ti perdoni, l'aria sono io, ma solo a morte mi rende.
Non lo amo, l'angel mio, mai più di mi dermi, tra te.
Non l'amo, l'angel mio, mai più di mi dermi.
Mai più, mai più, mai più.
A carnival is taking place outside. Violetta promises Alfredo that she'll bloom into health again and even tries to get dressed. Now here Verdi treats us to a duet in harmony and counterpoint and is the most tender moment of the opera, and of course the saddest. Alfredo's father comes to beg her forgiveness, and Violetta is comforted to have those she loves around her. With momentary illusion that life is returning to her, she tries to get up, but she falls back once more on the sofa. The doctor confirms that the end has come. The orchestra breathes the softest of reminiscences of Alfredo's love song, and even traces of Miserere from Il Trovatore can be heard. A sort of death march, impending doom. Bum, ba-ba-bum, ba-ba-bum. A few hammered octaves in the orchestra finally brings down the curtain, and the opera ends.
Parigio cara, noi lasceremo la vita uniti, trascorreremo de corsi affanni, compenso avrai, la tua salute rifiorirà, sospiro e luce, tu mi sarai, tutto il futuro ne arriverà.
Parigio cara, noi lasceremo la vita unite, trascorreremo
Sì,
i corsi affanni, compenso avrai, la mia salute rifiorirà. Tu mi sarai, tutto il futuro ne arriverà.
Parigio cara, noi lasceremo, noi lasceremo, la vita uniti trascorreremo, noi trascorreremo, de corsi affanni, ora penso avrai, sì, la tua salute rifiorirà, de corsi affanni, de corsi affanni, compenso avrai, de corsi affanni, compenso avrai, la tua salute così rifiorirà.
So, we bid a sad good night to La Traviata, the fallen one, the lady who loved Alfredo, and of course Camelia's. Or should I say good night, Marie Duplessis, and may 1,000 cupids guard you till we meet again. Good night.
Ted Courtney was talking about Verdi's La Traviata in the second of a series called Aspects of Opera. The producer was John Hughes. And next week in Aspects of Opera, Norma by Bellini.